It was thought at the time in 2008 that these types of homes would generally need fewer staff members, and therefore less residents would be necessary to cover the cost. I'm not sure that that's necessarily true anymore. I think the trend is starting to be more that you have more live-in staff members on the premises. I think maybe we have some people with experience here in the audience, and maybe they can speak to that as well. But just from my conversations with different sober living home operators, the trend seems to be that they typically want to have live-in staff on the premises as well. Generally, I think that sober living home operators will tell you that increasing the occupancy from 6 to 8 will have a number of benefits. One, I think they would suggest that the therapeutic benefits are greater. I think they would also suggest that if you have more residents there to help cover the costs of a sober living home, that it might allow more services to be offered. If the operator has a greater income stream, they might be able to afford greater services. Might also have the effect of reducing the rent that's required from individuals who want to live in these kinds of homes. But again, it looks like we have some people here who maybe can speak to that directly. So be happy to answer any questions that you might have about that.
What other things require, or how do I put this? We have the disabled adults that can have 8. What other situations would require 8 group homes?
We have basically elderly individuals and other people with either physical or mental disabilities.
And they would have live-in help all the time in those situations?
Typically they need to, yeah. If you've got people who are, so severely disabled physically or mentally, usually not able to take care of themselves, and so they would have live-in staff. And usually that's the case with the elderly homes as well.
And they currently allow 8 residents plus staff?
Right.
No matter how many bedrooms are in a single-family home?
Correct.
Okay. Do these sober living businesses need to go into single-family homes?
They can go in any residential area. The Federal Fair Housing Act allows them to go into any residential dwelling in the city, whether that be a traditional single-family home, whether that be a duplex or a condo or an apartment. They have the right to go anywhere.
Any residential zone?
Yes.
Okay, and the resident numbers are not dependent on bedrooms?
Correct. Yeah, the city doesn't, that's correct.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Earl?
And this is, can you just elaborate a little bit about the federal mandate on this and why we have to allow to have those here? Like if we decide not, let's just get rid of this, can we do that?
Okay. Yeah, the Federal Fair Housing Act basically requires that municipalities and other governmental entities allow every disabled person and what they say equal opportunity to live in a dwelling of their choice, basically. And what that's come to be defined or interpreted to mean is group home living arrangements, because typically people who are disabled don't have or can't live individually in a home by themselves. They have to be in a group home type of environment. And so, again, how that's been interpreted is you have to allow group homes for the disabled in any residential dwelling in the city. And people who are recovering from alcohol and drug addictions are typically considered to be disabled under the Federal Fair Housing Act. So sober living homes, therefore, come under that definition. If they're individuals who have an addiction to alcohol or drugs and they need to have a sober living environment in order to remain sober, then they typically will qualify for that. Was there something else? What did I miss?
I think you covered it. The other question was the minimal is 6. Is
right now.
I mean, to be even viable, right? The very minimum. There's no other municipality that has it at 4 or 5.
Other cities do have ordinances where they. Well, to be quite honest with you, some cities don't have an ordinance that allow group homes at all, and so what that means is that if somebody wants to come in and operate a group home for disabled persons, they typically have to come in and ask for a reasonable accommodation. And so they have to basically say to the city, we want you to waive your requirements that say, for example, if a city has a limit on 3 unrelated adults living together, then they would say, well, under current city ordinances, you can't have more than 3 disabled people living together, right? So a group home would say, we want you to waive that requirement to allow us to have 6 or 8 or 10 residents or whatever that number might be. And then the city, and those cities that do it that way have to decide those requests on a case-by-case basis. And typically what happens is what often happens is they try to deny them. Initially, and there's usually a big public outcry, a lot of public opposition, and then the city has a lot of pressure on it to deny it based on the public opposition. And in those cases where they do deny it, they often get sued, and typically they almost always lose when they do deny it. And so some cities have elected to go that route. I think that's an unwise course to follow, because it just opens yourself up to, a huge public uproar when a group home wants to go in. Whereas if it's a permitted use, you don't have to go through that process. And again, if you don't allow it by your ordinance, you have to ultimately allow it by reasonable accommodation anyway. So why put yourself through that process?
You're going to have to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other point is then you've seen that there's other cities that have been forced to accept up to 10, 12.
Yeah. There are cities that have been forced to require, large numbers. I mean, a common number for group homes is 8. I think that's just a number that seems to work well given the size of the average home in most cities, and maybe the staff levels and the supervision requirements. Obviously, the more people you have, maybe the more supervisory difficulties there are and things like that. So 8 seems to be a number that traditionally works pretty well, but some places want more, maybe because they have a larger home,
right,
that sort of thing. And they, nationwide and in Utah also, in some cases, courts have required that cities allow more than 8 residents in a given group home situation.
Right. And the city can't regulate what type of home. It can be any
residential dwelling. That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I'd like to hear from them. To hear a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Earl? Okay, the city is the applicant on this. We won't ask for the applicant to come forward, but this is a public hearing. So I think we're ready to open the public hearing on item 3.1. If anybody wishes to make any comments about this, if you would step to the microphone. We ask that you just stick to a 3-minute limit, and we will open the public hearing.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Maybe just depending on how much information they might have, and since there's only 4 people here, maybe we could have a little leeway in the time they take. I mean, at your discretion, if you feel like somebody needs a little bit more than 3 minutes, but just a thought.
4 or 5?
Yeah.
Probably not 30 apiece or anything.
Right.
So. Okay.
I appreciate it. I won't take much time. There's a Game 7 starting soon.
Yeah.
I will speak from my...
Would you just introduce yourself? And
My name's Daniel, and I am also a grateful recovering addict and alcoholic. I just celebrated 19 years sober, and a lot of that was due to sober living and what I was given and what I was taught. And nowadays, it's more common to go into sober living after treatment because they're finding in today's day and age that you can't cure addiction in 30 days. And so the after of that is being involved in the mainstream of life and with others with the same direction and purpose and objective to achieve before they go out in the real world. Power is in numbers. It is, you let a lot of other people have, mentally handicapped and whatever, that are in worse condition, mentally and physically than someone, who's trying to get sober and straighten their life out, live more, obviously house more than 6. But my point being is there are a lot more facilities as well, rehabs, and very, very few sober livings. I mean, here they're packed. And for me, speaking of experience, I went to sober living, ran a sober living, and I'm currently an owner of a sober living. And so besides all the just and the financial part of it is that these people need somewhere to go. You know, they need that safe place. Many of these times it's like when you just get someone in prison, they come right out of prison, they just go right back in. It's the same thing. They need to be taught direction and purpose. But my point is there's treatment centers all over and very few sober livings. And I don't see any cause, but I see a lot of help. I don't see what the problem would be by doing so, but I see how it could benefit many. Not only, you know, them as individuals, but also all of us, society at large. So,
And you're located, where are you located at?
we're located right here on 12th. We just purchased one, and we're in the process of getting licensed and everything right now as we speak. And it was actually an old beehive, and it is housed for 9. But, you know, given there's 9 rooms and it's fully functionable and fire and everything, we had the fire inspection, the building inspection is everything exactly the same as if it was for an old folks home, except a sober living, except you can only have 6 instead of 8.
So this is your first one then?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's not on this map yet.
no.
Okay.
But I also worked in one and have ran one and
Okay, and let's, just for experience, because obviously we don't have a lot of citizens here, but I'm sure what they do is they'll like, why did this happen? While they're listening, what kind of complaints did you get as when you were running one? How often did you get a complaint from the residents say, hey, there's all this kind of weird activity going on, we got,
you know,
I mean, is it more than average living?
no, not necessarily. No, it's actually, you know, a sober living it's a designed living with a curfew and rules and that people don't understand. But in society's mind, it's like, well, you're taking these people that are troublemakers and drug dealers and this, when there's a lot more going on in who knows how many people are living in this house or who's selling drugs out of this house, when what we created here is a structure of direction and purpose to recreate people's lives with value and moral and an intent to be, you know, a productive member of society again. And so to put a limit on that is kind of sad when, you know, everyone else's rights is they're either breaking the law or, like I said, you know, older homes are letting how many. The only problem I ever had was, so to speak, was smoking. But in society's mind at large as well, there's these, so to speak, a motley crew or black sheep moving in next door, you know, and it's not always like that.
Were you ever, or have you ever seen a situation where they were trying to put too many people into a home, and you know, and so then it wasn't a good environment to be in for the people that were trying to do their best?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I have. And I think, you know, depending on some people, and we're not doing this, but some people will put 2 in a room and house 12, you know, that aren't licensed. You know what I mean? And here we are licensed and doing everything the law requires, paying our taxes and everything that we're supposed to do, but yet we're limited. You know, do I think 8 is too many? No, I don't. I mean, you know, not to be prejudiced, but there's a lot of Mormon families around here with more than 8 in a house.
Okay, so if the Beehive Home has
And it-
9, excuse me, if the Beehive Home has 9 rooms,
Yes, ma'am.
would have everybody with their own room then?
Yeah.
You would not want to go up to 18 or
No,
whatever?
ma'am.
Okay.
No.
In your experience, how long does a specific person on average live in a?
You know, it varies depending on the length of dependency, what drugs and alcohol they were on. Usually 3 to 6 months. But my experience is it does wonders in people's lives. You know, it's just like they get out of treatment, and especially they go back home where a lot of these people, that's where all their problems started. Problems with their parents, you know, I mean, it goes on and on and on. And so it's just different for them too, and it helps them. And they bond with people that normally would not mix, but like I said, they have the same direction and purpose.
So are the residents typically, do they drive cars?
Yes, sir, some do.
You have 8 residents there, does that mean you would have 8 cars, or would?
Not always. 2 wheels. Some have bicycles. Some have cars. But, you know, and I want to make this apparent real quick as well. I'm sorry to take up, you know, I don't want to take up much time, but these people in ours, we require, there's a curfew. No one's allowed in our treatment center. or the sober living. No women, no parents, no nothing. It avoids theft. It avoids drugs being brought in. And these people, some of them don't have licenses, but they have a pedal bike. They're required within a month to either go to school part-time or full-time, work part-time or full-time. You know, so it's not just a bunch of, you know,
Party house.
recovering druggies and alcoholics being thrown in a house just up to their own free will.
And who's going to regulate your place?
We have a house manager,
Okay.
and he's been sober more than 2 years, and he works at a treatment facility, and he's a live-in. He will be a live-in. So day and night. So
So would he be one of the 6 residents or 8 residents or whatever would
Well,
go, or would he
that's
be
a-
in addition to that?
that's up to y'all, so to speak.
Ideally, you would want 8 residents
Plus-
or paying
yeah,
plus an on-site
plus-
manager.
Plus, yes,
This ordinance doesn't define that. It's just, we're just talking.
This ordinance does define that, doesn't it?
It
It says
just
there in
define
addition to-
people who are in the treatment, not staff.
Correct. So we're just talking
Okay.
about 8 residents. So the living
Right.
manager would be
Exactly.
an additional person in addition to the 8 residents.
Exactly. So we're not going to limit your staff. We're just saying how many.
yeah,
Hey,
resident,
sir, yeah,
correct,
yeah,
clients.
okay.
Yes,
We had a question. First of all, congratulations on 19 years. That's amazing.
thank you.
We were talking earlier. Do you usually, when it's, do you usually try to put people with similar dependencies in the same house, or is it just a mix, like maybe alcoholics, heroin, whatever?
It's just a mix, you know, it's the same disease,
Addiction is
you know,
addiction.
with the same purpose. Yes, it doesn't, obviously, I mean, we don't deal with, but addiction is addiction. It affects the mind and body the same way.
If the on-site manager has issues with certain people, then would they report that to you? Would you be responsible? Do these people have to go have the drug testing done? Does it just kind of depend on the resident themselves, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Kinda give
In our
a little-
application and most, when they sign, there's random UAs.
Okay.
Really twice a week. Surprise, nobody, you know.
Right.
And I'm very involved in what I do because I still do it to give back. Of course, it's a business, but I've done this for years and years without a business. And so I'm very involved. I pick my clients up. I take them to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. I'll take them, fill out, you know, their applications if they don't have a vehicle until they get one, show them where the bus stop is. Whatever kind of structure we can help them recreate their life.
Okay.
And it's just kind of sad to say, well, you can only help 6 people do that when there are thousands literally that need it.
Okay. Other questions for Daniel?
Well, you say that, I mean, this is your home. Are you under state? You're licensed by the state, is that correct?
We will be, yes.
Yeah.
It's not ran yet. It's vacant.
Is there somebody that oversees from the state what you're doing in these facilities? Or
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the state can come in and check anything, our files, anything on any of our clients at any time.
I assume health department probably has access, different things like
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's not just a free-for-all, believe me, and it's not a get-rich-quick. It's, you know, no, I promise. When I started getting into this, I thought the payoff would be a little greater financially, but it pays off to help others, and that's truly the blessing is you know, giving back.
Okay. Should we let someone else?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did we get your what was his last name?
Last name.
Daniel's last name? Paulson. Okay, name, please?
I'm Brad Finster. I'm a Daniel's business partner. I just picked up 10 years on Saturday, 10 years of sobriety.
Awesome.
Well, as well as him, I struggle with the same addiction, same disease. And you talked about the state a little bit. The state actually comes in, we have an inspection on the 18th, and they'll actually license you for the number of people they see fit. I think they do so many per square foot of building space you have. So they might come in and license a facility for 10 people, but we're limited on what the city allows. So even though the state of Utah might license us for 10 or 12, the most we can have is 6 people, depending on what city we're in. So we will do that inspection on the 18th through the state. The city always overrides the state that you're in, dependent upon that. So I don't know if that'll help answer that question. But.
Okay.
So do you typically have 1 resident per room? Is that the preferred thing, or is 2 per room
Well, we
preferred?
figured
Or
ours
3?
per room because of the city ordinance. I know other sober livings that do have 2 per room. A lot of a lot of clients you get might not be able to afford what you charge for one room. To meet expenses we have, license fees with the state, there's a lot of different fees. And so, yeah, depending on the sober living home, it might have 2 per room. And of course, if you have 2 people per room, the rent's a lot cheaper, which allows people that aren't so financially stable to come into sober living.
Could you give us an idea about what you would charge per room or for a double room? We really have no idea.
Usually a single room's anywhere from $700 to $900.
Okay.
A double room, $550 to $650.
Is that covered by the person's insurance, the person's family? Are there grants available? Is it federal funding? Is it just on your own?
What I've seen, typically the family helps out. Sometimes the church does, depending if they're active in the church. We've talked to a lot of bishops that help out. Sometimes, a lot of times it's the tenant. They work and they pay for
got the
their
money.
own pocket. Yeah, I haven't had any federal grants or
Okay.
any funding like that.
Pretty self-funded then?
Yeah, self-funded. Yep.
Thank you. Anything for Brad?
Real quick, have you experienced going through a living sober home? And if you did, were you in a single room or a double room yourself?
Yes, sir. I started out in a double room. When I got a job and was able to get a single room, I moved into a single room.
And how effective was the double room versus the single room? Any difference or?
There was no difference. They were both effective. I was more appreciative of the single room once I got it.
For sure.
But, you take what you get when you can get it.
Right.
And also, like Daniel brought up, a lot of the neighborhoods I see around, because I've done, what I've done in my past, and I've worked through and I've become a better person, productive member of society. You guys, there's a lot of houses, you don't know what's going on in these houses, in the basement of this house, or the neighbor's house, or the house across the street. The nice thing about a structured sober living home, they're if they're licensed with the city and state, it's a sober living home. There's random UAs twice a week. They're drug tested when they first come in. And they can't fool us because we've been there. And so we know if they're trying to manipulate, lie, they're not following their curfew. Like Daniel said, we don't allow visitors over to our home. Some do. I'm not against that. We just like to keep our home free of anything that might happen. But, it's structured, and it's pretty neat what happens. They grow and they bond, and, they get jobs and they start to get life back, and we point them towards a God of their own understanding that works from their lives, a faith and, purpose and direction, like Daniel said. And it's just neat to see what happens in people's lives. They come into treatment centers and, they get healthy is what they call it in 30 days. They get off all the drugs and alcohol, and they're structured. They're there day and night. They don't leave. They don't go work. They're in that facility, and they get thrown right out to the real world, and they have to get these jobs, and they don't know how to deal with life situations. They have all this baggage, and they don't know how to deal with it. So what we do in sober livings is those people are going and they're working out of treatment centers. And when they encounter problems in their life, we help them through it. And they're around other people that are staying sober like they are, and they have that structured environment. And then you kind of wean them out of that into their other homes or with their families. And it's kind of a step-down process rather than just throw them out in the streets out of rehab. So,
Is this, do you require, I don't know if owners require them to have gone through an official detox rehab official program before they enter into a sober living home? Or can somebody off the street say, hey, I've been clean for this long and I want to come in and live here? Do you kind of have relationships between those rehab centers that come into the homes, or is it just a free-for-all?
yeah, we know a couple of the owners of some of the treatment centers. We've worked with them in the past. And but we don't require it now. We're not going to deny anybody help that wants to get help and change their life.
So if someone says, I've been clean for 30 days, I want to come and live in one of your homes.
If
then
they can
you
pass
say-
the drug test and they have a job, or they're seeking a job and they can find one with them in 30 days, we'll let them come in. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have waiting lists for these?
Typically, yes, we do have waiting lists. But sometimes, like Daniel said, people that are 60, 90 to 120 days, sometimes people just can't wait that long. But yeah,
Okay.
we actually have a home that we only have 3 people in the upstairs part of it and 3 people in downstairs, so we're not breaking city ordinance, where we've had 9 people that needed a place to go and we haven't had a room for them. We've had to turn them away, put them back wherever they go, wherever they're living, and turn them away from sober living because we don't have a room for them.
So this is something people want to do it.
Yes.
It's not like you're out on the street saying, hey, come live in my house with me.
I've had one client, no, I've had one client that was court ordered.
Okay.
The other ones have been voluntarily, and when you do have room for them, they're pretty happy about it. So, yeah, it's something they want to do.
Want to do.
Yep.
Okay.
As far as your random drug testing, what happens in the case of a positive drug test?
There, in the city of Orem, there's an ordinance we have to evict them for 30 days. I think the Utah state law is 72 hours. So they're a little bit different there. We're not talking about that now. I mean,
No, but we
would evict them.
would evict them for a period of
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
Anyway.
And then we have a group conscience, a house meeting, and we decide as a group with the house manager and the other clients in the house. Our number one objective is all the other clients' safety in the house.
Sure.
You know, we want to make sure there's no drugs or alcohol or no chance of them, hooking up with this person going out together. And so as long as everybody feels good about it and they can pass a UA when they're allowed to come back in, whatever that period is, 30 days, we let them come back in the house.
Congratulations on 10 years.
Well, thank you.
How do you find each other, the clients and the center? Did you advertise? Is it word of mouth?
It's word of mouth, and we build a relationship with some of the treatment centers. They know and respect us. They know our sobriety and our story, we could call it, and they know where we came from, what we've done in our lives, and they really look up to us. So they want their clients from their treatment centers to go through our sober living.
Okay.
So mostly word of mouth. We haven't started advertising yet. I'm sure we'll make some business cards and make a website, but we haven't done that yet.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions for him?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. We will let anybody else speak that would like to.
Hi, my name's Nicole Wimmer, and I work for Papillon House Incorporated. We're located in Orem, and we also have a house in American Fork. I have been working for Papillon House for 6.5 years now. I am also 7.5 years sober, and living in Papillon House was the first year of my sobriety. So I am a huge sober living supporter. Before I came into Papillon House, I had been to treatment centers before, and not blaming it on the treatment centers. I would get out of treatment, and I would have all these tools that were given to me, but I wouldn't know how to use them, and there was no ongoing aftercare process. And, this time, for myself, I decided to go into a sober living and ended up living there for a year until I decided to move out on my own, and then I couldn't get enough of Papillon House, I guess, and so I started working there. But our home over in Orem houses 6 women. Our home over in American Fork houses 9 women. It's the differences with the city. And although Papillon House has been very successful, they've been open for about 10 years now. We've had a home in Lehigh, American Fork, and now Orem. Orem's been open for about 3 years. In the differences in numbers of people, managing both houses, sometimes American Fork is a little bit easier to manage because they have that extra 3 women. And so when you have that extra 3 women, you have extra women in there that have more recovery than the new ones coming in. When you have the mixed recovery coming in the house, you could have someone with 6 months recovery and then have someone come in that only has their 30 days of recovery. To manage those people along with the staff has shown to be a lot more effective and a lot less drama sometimes. We do really good at 6 women. It would be nice to be able to house 8 women. We have such a high demand, especially right now. This is the season where you'll hear about a lot of overdose deaths, people relapsing. This is just a really bad time of year for addicts. The cold winter months are coming up. Depression sets in, and people give in to the addiction. With the women, we do have single rooms and we do have double rooms. We have 2 double rooms and the rest are single rooms. We actually have 7 beds in our house, but we keep double rooms open. So the woman coming in, if they can't afford the single room, then they have that option for the double room. And it's more often than not that they do need the double room. I preferred, when I first moved into sober living, I moved into a double room first. I liked it for me because I was an isolator, and could find myself isolating in a room all by myself. And then, I had the opportunity to move in the single room, and I liked that much better. But, the double room did help me a lot. We always, sometimes we'll be a little bit low on women. Just recently, I only had 5 women in the house, and the house was a little bit harder to manage. Than just having, the 6 women in the house. I had more women there with early recovery than I did with, more recovery, who were working towards moving out. I like it that way because sometimes a cluster of women can move out of the house all at once, and that means you're going to have a cluster of women moving in with very little recovery, that need the support and the knowledge from the other women who do have that recovery.
Are your rents equal, generally what he had talked about, and also your parking?
Okay, so in the whole entire time that I've worked in sober living, I've never ever had a problem with parking. That's always been a big worry of the neighborhood, the surrounding neighbors around us. We do have a garage and we do have a driveway. Most people coming into recovery who have lost everything do not have a car. There are those few women that do have, that haven't lost everything before they came into recovery. They still have their parents helping them, and they still were able to keep a hold of the car and their license at the same time. And, so in a full house of 6, maybe 2 to 3 women have a car. The rest are on foot.
Do you have an on-site manager that lives there then all the time?
We do not have an on-site manager.
Are we talking about Orem?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We do not have an on-site manager. There is a house manager there every single day with the girls. We have to talk to them by telephone every single day. We have group check-ins where everybody's on the group check-in. You have to check in where you are, who you're with. No one is allowed to leave the house unless the whole house has met the person that they're leaving with and has been approved by the house. If by any chance we suspect that the person may or may not be living a life of sobriety, we will drug test them. They don't have to drug test for us because they're not under our care, but if they really want to hang out with the person they want to leave with, then they're going to drug test.
Okay. Are your rents pretty much similar to that for singles and doubles?
Yes, they are, and we're looking to lower our rents. I myself couldn't afford housing on my own when I first moved into sober living. I did have some scholarship help, a program that saw that I was in need and helped me out with my rent for the first 3 months of my sobriety, and I was able to pay it on my own after that. But it would be nice to lower the rents even lower, especially for the ones who have lost everything. It does take a minute to get a job because when you have a criminal background, people don't see you as the most employable person, and it could take a month or 2 to get a job.
Okay. Any other questions for Nicole?
So what you talked about was you have women in your house, men in your house. Are they always separated?
Yes.
That's preferred?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That would be cause for a lot of pregnancies. Yeah.
Just clarifying.
Yeah, and it's even said in the recovery world, when you first come into recovery, men stick with men and women stick with women. It's the women that help the women, and it's the men that help the men. I have plenty of male friends, and I have plenty of males that have been a support to my life, but I needed women to show me how to be a woman.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Okay, anyone else?
My name is John Misrassi. I am a co-founder and COO of Papillon Integrated Recovery Center.
Can you state your last name again?
Misrassi, Misrasi.
John, okay.
I pronounce it just like it's spelled. You know how many times I've spelled that in my life? I wished I had even a penny. Anyway, Papillon Integrated Recovery is a combination of
A little closer to the microphone.
is a combination of. I started and founded Help Nest Incorporated, a nonprofit organization, almost 9 years ago in the state of Utah. It was designed. Our credo was Addiction Recovery Solutions. I've owned traditional treatment centers in the past, but in so doing, my experience with that was that the traditional model of treatment it just doesn't work. And I'm not knocking treatment centers. Treatment centers are absolutely necessary for acute cases where people are acute, just like heart or liver or diabetes. Because what has to happen, what treatment centers provide is an environment and a forum, a venue that helps me, the addict or alcoholic in an acute state, to get healthy, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Because if I don't do that, I don't have a chance. Even if I do that, as we all know, the odds are not really good. So 10 years ago, I got out of the treatment business and formed a nonprofit with the purpose of really starting to try to create a shift in the treatment industry. And I know all the providers. I've worked with them for years. I know the owners and everything else. And so where we lose people a lot of times to this disease is in the initial stages, when you or your husband or your loved one, your child, they're acute, they're sick, they have the disease, they've destroyed everything, and you don't know what to do. You just don't know what to do. And the first thing that comes in your mind, I can tell you, is you can't afford it. So the next exercise you do is you start what I call dialing for treatment centers. And that just validates what your thoughts were. You can't afford it, even though we have some insurances today that do help, but that's changing as well. So what happens traditionally then is that nothing gets done, and what happens to that individual is they die, they go to prison. The worst part to me is that the wreckage of the family continues. Now I watched that for many years being in the business. So for the last 10 years, I've advocated to treatment facilities everywhere and to expand on the treatment. Because the problem with it is we go to treatment, and traditionally, and we all think that, the perception is that we go to treatment and spend 50 grand for 60, 90 days in treatment. Well, we should be better. Well, we're healthy. Recovery treatment's treatment, it's not recovery. Recovery starts when you leave treatment. Now, we talk about some tools in treatment. You know, we put them out there, but really what we're doing in treatment is getting down to your core issues. What's causing the emotional pain? Because it's the only reason we use drugs and alcohol excessively is for the sensation. It's the only reason. So in treatment, we want to find out what's causing that pain so we can deal with it. So we do that in treatment. Then I get healthy. And then I'm feeling like, okay, I got this thing. I mean, I got it. I've gained 30 pounds. My family's talking to me. I'm back. I'm ready. The problem is, we're all serious as a heart attack at that stage. We really are, and we really truly believe that. The problem is, we don't know how. Our solution is change. It's the only solution that we have, is change. Now, first of all, as human beings, we don't like change. I think most of us can attest to that. However, it is our only solution. Virtually, and people ask me all the time, well, John, what do I got to change? Let's start with a shorter list about what you don't have to change. And it's much shorter because it's virtually everything. And I don't want to go on forever, but I want to help you understand that what needs to happen, and we're missing the boat, the treatment industry. And I love the guys and the people, and I've been in the business myself, and I'm still in it now with Papillon as a co-founder. But our model is very different. We've got somebody here that's providing housing for men. We're going to work with them in the same. Our model of treatment that we perform in our American Fork facility under the state license of Papillon Integrated Recovery Center is designed to help people make those changes. teach them how to acquire the tools, use the tools, and become self-sufficient and make the changes because they don't have the tools to do it. No, I didn't. I'm kind of a smart guy. I mean, I'm not stupid, but people don't know how to make those changes. First of all, they're afraid of them. They don't like change. None of us do. But it's our solution. We're here for one reason, and that's to progress. And there's no progression without change. So we take that component and put it into place and help people make, it's like an applied recovery model. It's on-the-job training. But we give them the direction. We don't do it for them. You know, we set up the target, give them the target. We give them the structure, and we help find the purpose, which is, if you think about it, structure, direction, and purpose is the opposite of chaos and drama, which is what we want to do. We want to get it. This requires
Mr. Ross.
a way of thinking.
Sorry. You know, we already allow sober living homes in the city generally. I think the question for the Planning Commission today is, what benefit is there going from 6 to 8 residents potentially? Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts on that is we couldn't have too many beds. You know, there's a tremendous need for them out there, and there's got to be a safe place. But the benefit of what conceptually and philosophically what these folks are doing here, we're going to be working with them and doing this. There's a recovery engaged learning component to our program, which is recovery coaching, and it truly is coaching. There's a therapeutic component. That's great. We're going to be working with them with that as well, but we want to help these people make the changes that they need to make in order to have any chance of success in being in recovery.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, last one.
I won't take long.
Would you give us your name, please?
My name is Colin Simonson.
Okay.
I am an attorney for Renaissance Ranch. And so I don't know as much about the business side of it, but I do know a little bit about the legal side. And also I've had experience in litigating disputes revolving around these matters with other cities. About a month ago, I called Mr. Earl and said, you know, we're going to make an application for reasonable accommodations because we think we really need 8 people for financial reasons to make it work financially and also for therapeutic reasons. And he said, well, you know, there may be a change. Can we wait for that? And, you know, I said, yeah, let's see how it goes. And I'm very grateful for his advice because I know if this is approved that it could avoid litigation in the future. The reason for that is that the ADA and the Fair Housing Act, they're very good, but they're kind of vague. They say the city has to make reasonable accommodations. Well, the city may have a different view than Renaissance Ranch about what reasonable accommodations are, and then there you get into a fight, and that leads to litigation, and that's not good for Orem or Renaissance Ranch. And so I really think bumping it up to 8 makes Renaissance Ranch work better, and probably won't need. I can't, you know, promise, you know, maybe they'll ask for something someday, but they're telling me I think that they can make it work with 8. So that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Where is on the map, where is Renaissance Ranch?
You know, I actually don't remember the
Okay,
location.
there's 2 of them here.
I do understand there are 2 of them.
2 of them, okay.
One of them's a woman's. The other one, I don't recall if it's men's or women's.
Okay. Are they currently double bedroomed? I mean, are there enough bedrooms to accommodate that currently, or?
Yeah, they do have enough, and they are double bedroom. They tell me that the benefit of that is accountability,
Okay.
to having 2 people per room.
Okay.
So,
Any questions for Colin? Thank you. Okay, I think everyone has spoken in the public hearing, so I think we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. I have one question for Mr. Earl. When we hear about this financial, I was going to remember the words. The idea that-
Viability.
Yeah, the liability.
Viability.
Viability. What really is the city's responsibility to make sure that it is financially viable for owners of this type of business as opposed to all the other things that people want to be financially viable?
Yeah, it is a little bit different. You know, obviously the city doesn't have a responsibility to make sure that any business in the city is financially viable. However, under the Fair Housing Act, this isn't really looked at as a business.
Okay.
It's looked at as an opportunity for a disabled person to have a dwelling or a home, if you will. And so the way the Fair Housing Act would look at it is that if you don't allow enough residents for the facility to be financially viable, then you're effectively denying them the opportunity to have housing.
Okay. Okay. Other questions?
I have comments.
Okay.
The way I look at it, it's in everyone's best interest, the residents, the owners, the city, to have successful, sober living businesses, both financially and we just want the people to be successful. The timing is interesting for me. I just had a neighbor who lost a daughter on Halloween night to an overdose in their home. And this whole time I've been thinking, what if she'd had a place to go? And I don't know that she didn't, but it just is hitting me kind of hard today. So sorry, didn't expect to get emotional. Yeah, I think society at large needs a place for addicts to go, to get all the way better, not just clean, but to learn how to live sober so they can get back to their lives. This poor woman has been an addict for probably 20 or more years, and she lost her life by degrees. And in the end, there was nothing left but for her to end it. And that's tragic. I don't want that to ever happen to anyone. So I'm for this. 8 sounds great to me. I never see a sober living house on the news where the police cars are there and there's any violence or anything. I feel like I see one that's not too far from my house. I'm going to drive by. I've never noticed it. I've never seen anything different from a regular residence. And I know that's what people are concerned about. It's going to cause trouble, like you said, the motley crew next door or whatever, but don't really see that that's happening. Karen, you might have some insight.
Well, I know of a home that was just through the block from us, and we had a couple of the guys come over and help us, and no problems at all, like very nice young men, and come to church and that kind of thing. Now I forgot what the name of Papillon. So that home is no longer there. I was totally unaware that one's not, according to the map. Papillon, I was curious about how long you'd been in Orem, and you said 3 years, right? Yes. Had no idea it was there. And it's just a block and a half, 2 blocks away from my home, across the street from my bishop. And so, it's the same as what I've said before with Telos. It offers a good solution for people in the situation that they are in, those young men. Same thing with these sober homes. It provides a good place for them to be and learn. And as a neighbor, I've never had a problem with them.
Okay. Other comments?
I was just going to say that, my concern would have been, or is, and it's changed as we've discussed more of what this really is. Because I am a resident, and, our perception, because I'm just like you guys, as soon as I leave this podium, I'm just, what are they doing over there? Why are they doing this? And so it was really good to hear your guys' point of view, your experience, and then also hearing what Steve has to say for all the legal and reasoning that's behind it. Still have a concern, but I can see, based on a couple of us here already having experience living by one, that the residents in Orem don't need to be any more concerned than any other neighbor being right next to them. And so I really do appreciate you guys sharing your thoughts, because I was one of those thinking, man, I'm not sure if we want more of this. Maybe we limit it at 6 instead of 8, and that way we don't have more people trying to make businesses out of it all throughout the town. But again, if we can't recognize it, and I haven't heard anything in the news, any problems of violence or robberies or anything like that from a home like that, because really, I just learned today what a sober living house is, or even existed. So thank you.
One of my concerns when I first read about this was, are we trying to put too many people in one place? But as I've been listening to what you're saying, I'm thinking you have the residents concerns at heart, and so you want them to have the best experience possible, and I hope that's what you're doing, because otherwise it's, you don't want to turn them out into society and then have them have more problems again. So hopefully there's not that situation. And I don't know if this is something to say or not, but we're talking all about bedrooms, but what about bathrooms? That thought has crossed my mind as to making sure that that's a situation that's well taken care of.
Okay. Anybody else?
Can I say one other thing?
Sure.
The state does come in and make sure you do have enough bathrooms.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah, so
That's adequate.
Before the states, I mean, they're making sure you.
Well, when we were talking about it in our pre-meeting, we were told that, as far as bedrooms, the city can't do anything about that. So it's good. And so I appreciated your comments earlier about the state telling you how many you can have. That's wonderful.
And this doesn't have anything to do with the number of bedrooms, only the number of individuals that can be in the home.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
About the bedrooms, they actually come in where you can only have a certain amount of people per square feet.
Yeah.
So like, we can't just take a little bedroom and like shove 3 beds in there. It has to be like, there has to be enough room, living space for each person. Everything is measured. If it's a small bedroom, it's a single room, and we even have to have enough square feet for that single room for that person to sleep in there.
That is good to know too. I feel that way too, because we were thinking you could just take a 1,500 square foot Rambler and stuff 15 people in there, and
Well, 8 people.
even 8 people in there, and really, that is a concern, because really we do only allow 3 unrelated people to share a home, and so the idea of then going in and more than doubling that, and knowing that they are the people that are going to need some help and going to have some restrictions and whatnot, that's good and bad. So that helped answer some things for me as well. So is everybody ready to probably make a motion and move on?
I'll make a motion. I would like to move that we recommend to the City Council a positive recommendation for amending Section 22-6-9D3 of the Orem City Code to increase the permitted number of sober living home, SLU 1263, residents from 6 to 8.
Okay, Becky Buxton has made a motion. Is there a second? Dave Moulton has seconded that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Forward recommendation to them. Thank you for coming, for your information. It was very helpful. Minutes review. I don't have the minutes. I don't even have the date of the last minutes. Anybody see anything?
I went
That's right. The date is October
The 19th.
October 19th. Okay, minutes from October 19th. Anybody see anything? I will make a motion that we accept the minutes from Planning Commission October 19th. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Karen seconds the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, a director's update. Nothing? Next meeting will be November 16th at 3 o'clock. November 19th, touring Telos, 3 o'clock.
Probably at 3? Oh, okay.
Okay. Here at 3?
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, does that work out?
Yeah, we should have plenty of time, just because right now, if we don't have any other items,
Yeah.
Okay.
first items will be at 5, but I suspect we'll probably get some 4:30 things for you too, though.
Okay. And I noticed we...
Okay. I will be here to represent
6th.
you.
There was a continued item from last meeting. I thought we were going to see that this meeting. Will that be on the...
Most likely, yeah. I was talking
Okay.
to the applicant yesterday about it. Until we do actually have the revised plat back in,
Okay.
we've got to review it as staff.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I'll move that we adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Carlos seconds the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.